Hey thinkers, this video is the story behind why I chose to start YouTube, which is to help you learn to move forward through difficult circumstances, such as trauma, financial stress, or illness, whether that be physical or mental, or whether it be severe or just an underlying condition that kind of just messes with your mind throughout the day. Something that makes the little things difficult. But those could still be big things like depression, anxiety, physical exhaustion. All of those things can be debilitating and make even the simplest of tasks seem daunting. Now, I am not a doctor or a licensed counselor, but I was trained in some counseling. However, more importantly for this channel, I have actually been through some counseling. Some good, some bad, some religious, some not religious, and I have received good and bad advice from both sides. So a little explanation here. Originally, I began to video this project under the name of Brain Threes, but I decided I actually don't like that name. I used it for a few weeks and it just wasn't working for me. So please bear with me because you're gonna hear me say Brain Threes a few times. Now, I thought about reshooting the entire video, and maybe I will in the future, but for now, I'm going to put this glaringly imperfect video out there. This is actually an exercise for me in learning to stop stopping myself from progressing and moving forward with what I want to do. Because that is exactly what this whole channel, Harness Thought, is going to be about. It's not just about what Heather Harness thinks, it's about harnessing the power of your thoughts, your experiences, your strengths and weaknesses, harnessing the wisdom of others, past and present. And sometimes it's about harnessing the power of the lessons that we learn on those seemingly meaningless rabbit trails that life tends to take us on. You know, those detours that we just don't plan. They can actually serve a purpose. The point is, you can use all of this to become who you were created to be. The way a person thinks will determine what they end up being. So here's a snapshot of my story. I am searching for my tribe just like you are, so you know what, give it a shot. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, engage yourself in this process. Let's see what we learn together. I am hoping that putting my story out there can encourage you to move forward in your own life, in your own goals. And be sure to stay tuned until the end because I'm going to share with you a little about how I am learning to successfully crawl forward with my goals. Here's the story. I actually developed Brain Threes for myself. I was dealing with 3 major problems that got my goat all tied up in a tizzy. This should be entertaining. The proper translation, my life was in an uproar. So although I am a hopeless pessimist, realist Heather, you're a realist, I am no longer going to call these things problems. I'm going to refer to them as issues. And let me also say that I am not, I repeat, am not looking for sympathy and sharing this information. I know that so many people suffer so much more. I just want to give you a foundation so I can build the story. Issue number 1. About 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. It was actually found incidentally while I was trying to figure out what I now know to be a neurological issue. I had gone to my family doctor for what I thought was possibly vertigo. None of my tests came back abnormal, which was great. But after a routine throat check, my doctor sent me to an endocrinologist just to make sure that my slightly enlarged thyroid wasn't a problem. After seeing something, I went for my first biopsy in my throat. The results came back suspicious, which means, well, they have no idea. This basically meant that there was a 30% chance that the nodule found in my thyroid was cancerous. The good news was that they weren't afraid of cancer in my thyroid. In fact, I had been told on several occasions that if you're gonna get cancer, this was the best kind to get. If there is such a thing, but okay. However, in my case, there were 2 major concerns. Concern number 1, the close proximity to my trachea. Yes, everybody's thyroid's close to their trachea, and the nodule was actually extremely close to my trachea. You see, according to my doctors, you could have a cancerous thyroid tumor for decades. You could even die with it without even knowing you ever had the cancer. Hence, the incidental finding of the possible cancer. However, the prognosis for tracheal cancer is a little bit more grim. It's believed that only 15% of patients only survive 3 years with tracheal cancer. And we all know cancer has a way of spreading itself.
Now, I'm not a numbers girl, but them's ain't good numbers.
Concern number 2, my family history. My mother passed away when I was 3 years old from breast cancer that had metastasized to bone cancer. I guess her pregnancy with me took its toll because after my birth, her cancer came back with a vengeance. She was 38 years old when she went to be with Jesus. Along with this, I had never met them, but I was told by a distant relative that her father, along with all of his siblings, had passed away from cancer. The odds of my cancer being related to hers were quite high, seeing as I was born while she was actually in remission. Plus, we now know that even a mother's stress levels and food choices can affect an unborn baby. After getting a first, second, and countless other opinions, we decided to have my thyroid removed. It was just too big of a risk to leave the tumor be, even if we weren't sure that it was cancerous. So on May 18th, 2012 at Cleveland Clinic, I underwent surgery and had my total thyroidectomy. And sure enough, the results came back, it was cancerous. I'm thankful I did it. Sort of. More on that some other time. And the awesome news is, with no thyroid, that means no thyroid cancer. I was free. Or so I thought. Issue number 2, a neurological disorder. Remember that little issue that I thought was vertigo? Well, it definitely took a back seat to the whole cancer scare. Seriously, who thinks about a little dizziness when your mortality is flashing before your eyes? We had all just chalked it up to it being part of a thyroid complication. I had actually forgotten all about it. Fast forward to February 14th, 2017. Yep, Valentine's Day. I was sitting in my kitchen after dinner, texting photos of my daughters in their adorable Valentine's Day pajamas to my mother when it hit. Dizziness so bad that I couldn't sit up straight. I got down on all fours on the kitchen floor just so I wouldn't fall over. My eyes were blacking out, and I began to have convulsions that started at the base of my spine, went down through my legs, and then up all the way up to my neck. I was jerking and shaking and terrifying myself, my husband, and unfortunately my nearly 3-year-old that was sitting in the kitchen with me. We hadn't sent her to bed yet. My husband called an ambulance. By that time I was sprawled out on the floor, so my daughter lay down on the floor beside me and kept patting my face saying, "Mommy, okay?" It was all I could do to focus on her beautiful face and pray that I would not die in front of my nearly 3-year-old daughter myself. She still brings up this incident, even last week. I didn't realize kids remembered things that far back. She was like 2, like almost not even 3 yet. I was taken to the nearest hospital where I was told that I was having a panic attack. What? Something wasn't sitting well with this presumed diagnosis. Yes, I absolutely know that panic attacks are real. They are terrifying, but that wasn't my problem. First off, they had run no tests outside of a blood test, and I was told that my presumed panic attack actually didn't fit the bill of mainline panic attacks. They told me I was obviously stressed out. They wanted to know what I was doing leading up to the episode that I had, and I told them. And then they started giving me Ativan. Enter hallucinations. I remember looking at my husband terrified and saying, "Jim, the air is moving." I didn't realize I had that superpower, but apparently with some medications I do. A while later, they sent a doctor in to discuss my discharge. I told them that I was Christian, but they sent in a Buddhist woman, I believe, with papers on Buddhism and told me I needed to study up on it. And I did. No, that does not mean I gave up my Christianity. And then they sent me home. But here's the thing. We were not satisfied with their diagnosis. Number one, because it lasted 6 hours. They told us that a panic attack should only last between 10 and 30 minutes tops. 6 hours. And these convulsions did not stop unless I had medication. I was chatting, talking to my husband, laughing at some things, especially my appearance that night. But the convulsions did not stop without medication. Number two, I wasn't experiencing the common signs of a panic attack. The elevated heart rate, the changes in breathing, or I don't know, panic! Number 3, their admission that they actually didn't know. So we got a second opinion with a neurologist. I went through CT scans and MRIs and more blood work and still no definitive anything. Just a little dose of seizure meds to become dependent on without any answers. And here's another issue. The convulsions actually never stopped. As soon as my medication would wear off, they would come back, and they would last for hours. For about a month, I lost my ability to take care of my children, to take care of myself. And because I never knew when these things were gonna sneak up on me, I couldn't drive. And I was totally in a medicated daze. I don't even remember the month of March 2017. Finally, we found a new neurologist outside of the area. An amazing doctor in Columbus, Ohio. He took one look at my brain MRI, one look at me and my husband, and said, "Take a look at this image of your brain. I think you might be a Chiari patient."
I'm a what?
Your symptoms seem to line up with Chiari malformation type 1. Chiari malformation is, according to Mayo Clinic, and in my best Discovery Channel accent, a condition in which brain tissue extends into your spinal canal. It occurs when part of your skull is abnormally small or misshapen, pressing on your brain and forcing it downward. In layman's terms,
My brain's just too big for my skull.
a lot of people might not know that they have it. They don't have symptoms, and they don't need treatment. But I had 2 other things playing into this. A previous lower spinal cord injury and a mild concussion that was written off as,
You just got your bell rung.
but I received this concussion right where my brain was unprotected by my skull. The current theory is that I have developed an electrical glitch, or a short, which could lead to the symptoms I was having. Convulsions, Chiari headaches, numbness, word finding problems, vision problems, ringing in the ears. All of these symptoms that I was experiencing. It's not definitive, but it is a likely diagnosis. Enter more seizure medicine and more weight. Issue number 3, everything else. As you could probably imagine, the first 2 issues sent me into whirlwinds of depression, anxiety, and I was honestly a hormonal hot mess. And who could have predicted that my body would not recognize synthetic thyroid hormone, which is kind of vital if you don't have a thyroid. That's a bad thing. Throw a little pregnancy in there after the thyroid cancer and before the convulsions.
You got yourself a discombobulation.
Thankfully, during my pregnancy, my daughter was able to absorb the thyroid hormone that I was taking. She was born perfect and healthy, but that didn't leave me with much thyroid hormone left. I put on a lot more weight and had some emotional instability along with it. On top of that, like most other moms, I barely had the energy to shower, let alone take care of the house, work my job, homeschool my children, and how about Pop-Tarts for dinner? I felt like a complete failure. I totally pitied myself.
That ain't gonna get you nowhere, lass.
It was a long process, but I had to learn how to live again, and I'm still learning how to adjust. I'm still learning how to turn my chaos into some order. Back then, I took it one step at a time, one task at a time, one item per day. But I found that that wasn't really enough to make me feel accomplished. So many tasks had to be completed that just weren't getting done. And my mind was a mess. I didn't feel accomplished. And then when it came to larger tasks, I would just freeze and shelve it. So I started breaking tasks down, usually into groups of 3, maybe 4, but this is brain 3s. I would do 3 tasks, take 3 steps, put 3 minutes on my timer, put my daily schedule into 3-hour chunks on my calendar. Eventually, I made the decision that I could freeze it and get nothing done, or I could threeze it. You might call it cheesy. I call it threezy. So thinkers, remember, harness the power of thought. I want you to learn to embrace crawling forward, crippled, grieving, in pain, without knowing the outcome of the circumstances, and without clear direction, right now. And if you haven't done it already, please subscribe, hit that thumbs up button. Why are they waiting? I don't understand why they're not clicking. Is it because of me? And ring that bell for notifications so we can engage each other and grow together. Do it. Invest in growing yourself. I am just starting out, but I am going to work hard to bring you valuable content because I don't want to waste my pain, and I hate seeing you drown in it. Pain is some of the strongest energy that we feel. Harness it. And speaking of pain, many of you have your children home from school right now and are dealing with the very real need of learning how to educate them from home. You're going to want to check out my videos on being stuck at home with the kids. Trust me, it's not going to be what you expect. Remember, keep crawling forward. And please, don't stop thinking.